Story 1. The Midnight Caller. Every Halloween, Jake and his little sister Lily had a cherished tradition. They'd turn off all the lights, build a cozy blanket fort in the living room, and tell ghost stories under the flickering glow of a flashlight. Jake, with his vivid imagination, spun tales of haunted houses and restless spirits. But this Halloween night, their story was about to become a terrifying reality. Just as Jake finished a particularly spine-chilling story about a phantom lurking in the dark, a phone rang from the shadowy hallway. It wasn't just any ring, it was the haunting sound of an old-fashioned bell, echoing through the stillness of their home. Jake's heart raced. There was no landline in the house, no neighbors close enough to call. He turned to Lily, whispering urgently, "Stay here, I'll check it out." Slowly, he crept down the dim hallway, every step heavy with trepidation. To his astonishment, he found an ancient rotary phone sitting on a small, dusty table. A table that hadn't been there before. The phone continued to ring, each toll resonating in the eerie silence. Jake lifted the cold receiver, the chill seeping into his bones. "Hello?" he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Through the crackling static came a faint, chilling voice. "I'm getting closer, closer." Panic surged through him, and he dropped the receiver, sprinting back to Lily, who stood at the end of the hallway, pale and wide-eyed. In her small hands, she clutched a matching black rotary phone. "Lily," Jake stammered, "where did you get that?" She shook her head, her voice trembling. "I don't know, it just appeared." Suddenly, her phone began to ring. A slow, dreadful chime that seemed to fill the entire house. They stood frozen, fear coursing through them as the ringing grew louder, vibrating through the walls like an approaching storm. Then Jake realized it wasn't just the phones ringing, it was the voice that was getting closer. With adrenaline surging, Jake grabbed Lily's hand and they bolted from the house, leaving behind the relentless ringing and a whisper that seemed to follow them into the night. Story 2. The Phantom's Warning. Maria had always been captivated by the mysterious, drawn to antique shops and flea markets where relics of the past whispered their stories. One chilly October day, she stumbled upon a Victorian mirror, its frame dark and intricately carved with symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The vendor, an elderly man with a knowing smile, warned her, "This mirror holds secrets, dear." Ignoring his words, Maria brought the mirror home, hanging it proudly in her bedroom. That night, as she prepared for bed, she caught a glimpse of herself in the glass, but something felt off. Her reflection seemed to flicker and shift, as if another presence lurked behind her. Then, the impossible happened. Behind her in the mirror, a shadow moved, an echo of her own form that didn't match her. Heart racing, she spun around, but the room was empty. Returning to the mirror, she was met with a chilling sight. Words began to appear in a foggy scrawl. "Beware, leave this house." The following morning, she dismissed the message as a figment of her imagination. But that night, the words returned, clearer and more ominous, a warning she could no longer ignore. Desperate to rid herself of the cursed object, she decided to take the mirror down. As she lifted it from the wall, a folded, yellowed note slipped out from the frame. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it, revealing a desperate plea. "To the one who finds this mirror, beware, for he is here within the glass. I tried to leave, but he wouldn't let me. Once he sees you, you're his." A cold shiver coursed through her. Turning to the mirror, she gasped. The reflection staring back was no longer hers. It was a shadowed figure with hollow eyes and a twisted smile, watching her with malevolent intent. The next morning, Maria rushed to sell the mirror, eager to be rid of its dark energy. As she exited the market, the vendor called after her, his voice almost a whisper, "Happy Halloween, until next year." She glanced back and swore she could still see his smile, lingering in the glass, a reminder that some secrets are better left undiscovered. Story 3. The Haunting Melody. In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills, where autumn leaves painted the streets golden red, stood an old house, that was the subject of whispered stories. For decades, children dared each other to approach, for it was said that on Halloween night, the melody of a sorrowful piano would drift through the air, the music of a long-lost spirit. Ella, a brave teenager with a taste for the supernatural, decided to uncover the truth. Armed with a flashlight and an adventurous spirit, she made her way to the abandoned house as twilight descended. The air turned crisp, and with each step, an uneasy thrill coursed through her veins. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the shadows seemed to dance. She navigated through the cobweb-laden rooms until she found the parlor where an old piano stood, its keys faded and covered in grime. A shiver ran down her spine as she felt a strange presence surrounding her. Just as Ella reached out to touch the piano, the air filled with an ethereal melody, cascading over her like a haunting lullaby. She felt drawn to the keys and began to play, allowing the music to flow through her. But as she played, the melody darkened, twisting into a chilling lament. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and a figure materialized from the shadows, a ghostly musician, his eyes reflecting endless sorrow. His fingers danced over the keys, playing a frantic tune that matched the panic rising in Ella's chest. In that moment, she realized she had to finish the song to break the spell. Mustering her courage, she played alongside the spirit, each note resonating with urgency. The room shimmered with an otherworldly light, and as she reached the final chord, the ghost smiled, a look of pure relief washing over his face before he vanished. The house fell silent. Ella stepped outside, breathless, glancing back to see the house bathed in moonlight. She had freed the spirit, but she knew that some melodies would linger in the air, echoing through time long after the music had stopped. Story 4. The Witch's Curse. In a small village surrounded by thick woods, tales of Granny Willow, a witch with a reputation for casting curses, circulated among the townsfolk. Her cottage, shrouded in mystery and fear, became the subject of many ghost stories, especially on Halloween. It was said that anyone who entered her domain never returned the same. One fateful Halloween, a group of daring teens, eager to test their courage, ventured into the forest with a few bottles of whiskey. Their laughter echoed as they approached Granny Willow's cottage, the trees seeming to whisper warnings that went unheard. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of herbs and strange concoctions. Shelves were lined with jars containing odd ingredients, and a cauldron bubbled ominously in the corner. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Granny Willow appeared, her eyes glinting with mischief. "What brings you to my abode?" she croaked, her voice like the rustle of dead leaves. The teens, trying to appear unfazed, challenged her, claiming they weren't afraid of her magic. Granny Willow's grin widened. "Oh, you think you're brave? Let's see how you handle my curse." With a flick of her wrist, the air around them thickened, and shadows began to swirl, wrapping around them like a dark fog. Each teen was confronted with their worst fears, nightmarish visions that clawed at their sanity. They struggled against the darkness, but it was Emily, a quiet girl with a hidden strength, who remembered an old tale about breaking the witch's curse, to confront what you fear. "Granny Willow," she called out, her voice steady. "You're just a scared old woman hiding behind magic." Her words hung in the air, infused with an unexpected power. The witch's expression twisted, but Emily pressed on. "You can't control us. You're not as strong as you think." As she spoke, the shadows began to recede, and the swirling fog lost its grip. Realizing she was losing control, Granny Willow screamed in rage. The energy around them crackled, and with one final burst, the cabin erupted in light. The teens found themselves standing outside, the witch's hold shattered. As they stumbled away, they turned to see the cabin dissolve into mist, leaving no trace behind. They had escaped, but the memory of that night lingered in their minds, a chilling reminder that some legends are more than just stories, and Halloween magic can sometimes turn deadly.